Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. I hope you're doing fantastic out there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. So the Miami Dolphins got themselves a big decision this weekend as Terron Armstead officially retired from the NFL after a dozen seasons. Congratulations to Terron Armstead. Looked like he had a lot of people there. Tua Tagovailoa, Drew Brees, Tyreek Hill, amongst others. The whole crew seemed like it showed up. So Xavier Howard was there in some of the pictures. Very, very cool for Terron Armstead. Doesn't seem too surprising. It seemed like there was a lot of buzz heading this way with the whole bringing his salary all the way down. And then there was some talk this year about like, oh, would he come back as a reserve? I'm like, what are we talking about here? There's a part of me, though, that is relieved that the Terron Armstead era is behind us, and I don't mean that as a slight on the player in the least bit. Obviously, everybody knows that he's an awesome player when he's on the field, when he's producing for the Miami Dolphins. But it did get to a point where it's like he didn't even end up missing that many games last year, but even the games that he was out there, sometimes the knee wouldn't function. He'd have to sit the rest of the game. I just felt like the Miami Dolphins had to get to a point where they're off the Terron Armstead training wheels. You know, like you can't always be sitting here with this whole, is he going to go? Is he not going to go? And then you hear some of the stories about what he had to go through to even just get out there with not practicing, getting his body right, basically always being a gamer, never getting any practice reps with anybody, and still, being very awesome at his job. No knock on his abilities, but it just felt like you're sitting there all the time waiting for the other shoe to drop. When the hell was this guy going to get hurt? When was it going to happen? It was a matter of when, not if, when it came to him. And then the other part of me that I think is huge on this is you have Patrick Paul waiting in the wings. You draft him last year in the second round. It's very clearly the guy who you had him learn for a year under the tutelage of Terron Armstead. He's a moose. You don't really try him out anywhere else other than a couple of snaps at right tackle, which did not go fantastic for him. He didn't seem too keen on wanting to move into guard because he was asked about that last year. Didn't seem that thrilled about it. And you got to find out whether or not the guy can sink or swim. Now, hopefully very much he can swim, because if he can't, I don't know where the hell the Dolphins go from there. You know, you go into this season, you're going to get Austin Jackson back. You have Aaron Brewer. You got James Daniels going on one of the guard spots. I suppose the Eichenberg or Borum thing is there for now, but I have to imagine that the Miami Dolphins have another move. They're so now invested in the offensive line. This is what they're going to do. It's dawned upon them. You know what? Investing in the offensive line, that's the place to go. This whole, we don't have to put that much in the offensive line, and if the offensive line doesn't work out, and if we have an offensive lineman who's not the most durable in the world, a left tackle's not the most durable in the world, no bigs, dude. We'll figure it out. No, can't do that anymore. How many times are you going to have that bite you in the butt before you realize that it's a recipe for disaster? So the Miami Dolphins moving into this Patrick Paul era, you hope that it works out. He's obviously enormous. He seems like, a guy who's got a good head on his shoulders. His numbers in college were pretty impressive. There were times where he looked impressive in the pros, and then there were times that he did not. He's a rookie. So I guess in the long run, it was good that he got a lot of that, that he got a lot of that practice. But this to me isn't like the Calais Campbell move, because you have a very obvious replacement for him. And Calais Campbell, I just felt like it was more durable and was able to make impact plays more so, and you knew that he wasn't necessarily going to be that he wasn't going to break down. Now, in fairness, it is defensive line. You could sub guys in. It's not really a thing that you do with the offensive line very much. You like all five guys to be out there. So I know it's not an apples to apples thing, but at least we knew with the Dolphins moving on from Terron Armstead, or Terron Armstead moving on from football, at least you knew for a year, this is the plan. This is where we're going to go to. So for once, you're almost pleased that the Dolphins are like, all right, no, but we have our guy. We have our guy. We know who it's going to be. He's gotten groomed. He's ready to take over. Hopefully he can do this for a dozen years. And he can be out there and he can be just enormous and blocking the holy hell out of people. And you have your bookends. You have him. You have Austin Jackson, who can hopefully stay healthy. You have your center. Hopefully Daniels recovers from from the Achilles okay. And then you got to find that one missing piece. Hopefully that one is not Eichenberg. But he is still there, and that's always one of those things where you're going to be tempted to pick out there and go about and doing that. But look, beloved teammate, yes, the leadership void, people are going to be going to that. Hey, how do the Dolphins deal with, two of their most respected veterans not being on the team? On the counterpoint of that, though, it didn't feel like the Miami Dolphins had a lot of accountability and leadership as it was last year anyway. So maybe this is a time where new people can step up. You never really know how that process can go with guys taking the reins of that and being able to just step up and be able to be in that leadership position. Maybe it is on that offensive line Brewer. Maybe it is Austin Jackson, who's now been around for a while. It's tough to gauge on that of when this person steps in there. Do we have the right chemistry and leadership? And then, of course, they have a quarterback who's been around for a while. Though, he's getting a lot of scrutiny on Twitter because this has been Tua partying his ass off season, which I don't necessarily have a problem with at all. Will it get memed if he stinks? Yes. If there are issues and Tua comes up short again, are we going to get a montage of Tua's offseason versus so-and-so's offseason? Yeah, of course. That's the risk you run when all of this. I think the thing that's actually been interesting about Tua is for a guy who has been as private as he has for a lot of his career. Remember how much he would reprimand the media because it got out that he got married. He didn't want people to know that he was married. He didn't want anything out about his personal life. And some of these videos have gotten out there, and you're like, they're either by like friends, mutual friends, or whatever, and they still end up on the internet, where you would feel like Tua, a guy who likes to keep things private, keeps that circle tight. But somehow this last one that got out was Tortuga. If you guys don't know what Tortuga is, it's a monster 3-day, mostly country music concert on Fort Lauderdale Beach. Tua loves concerts, loves country music, and he ended up in a prayer circle apparently with Jelly Roll, who's of course one of the biggest country artists out there right now. This one to me is like, hey, you like music, go enjoy yourself. Who gives a rat's ass? Are you going to fill up Red Solo Cup? That's obviously what you do at a concert like this. But, yeah, we got to be prepared for what the memes are going to be as far as it. Now, I had heard from people that are at the concert, yeah, Tua does look a little bigger than he has in than he did last year. Good. I love that. I don't want Tua skinny. I hate skinny Tua. I hate mobile Tua. I hated that whole movement last year. I like Tua, a couple pounds on him, keep him safe in that pocket, keep him out there for 17 games. This is the place you need to go. The other thing that was interesting that I saw this weekend that I was kind of excited about, but I don't think it's going to happen, I saw that the Dolphins are eligible once again for Hard Knocks. The league is having a hard time getting people to agree to Hard Knocks because of what happened to the New York Football Giants. The Giants have Hard Knocks off season, which in my mind, it's the best Hard Knocks I think I've ever seen. It was so good, and I don't give a rat's ass about the Giants. I didn't really give a rat's ass about Joe Shane, but this was captivating stuff. The way that you could see an offseason be run and really run into disaster. A star free agent negotiation gone wrong. Star quarterbacks that they bring in for drafts, and I just thought the whole project was awesome. And I think, to me, as a fan, I found it, like, valuable. And I think as a Giants fan, I think it's a great thing to have because you have just, like, this audit of your front office that's there. Now, the Hard Knocks that the Dolphins are eligible for now, it's not going to be offseason. The offseason, that was such a disaster for the Giants that they ended up having to like scrap it, and I think they're doing a Bill Belichick thing or something like that. But I love the idea of your team doing Hard Knocks. A lot of people hate it because they're like, no distractions, no cameras, no whatever. Trust me when I tell you, there's never been more cameras around your team. There's ever been more content that their teams are pumping out. There's how many angles do we have of victory speeches and all that stuff? You've never had more of that content, which I think we all love. We're in a content society. We have a lot of this stuff. Hard Knocks back in the day was looked upon as something invasive. Now everybody kind of does it. But if I was an owner, I would almost, and I had questions. If I was Stephen Ross, I would almost, now maybe he knows anyway, but I would almost want the temperature of like, where is my GM and where are my head coach on the way they handle all of this stuff? We know that the Dolphins did this recently with the in-season, and quite frankly, it actually didn't go great for the Dolphins once the Hard Knock stuff started cranking. But I found all of it fascinating. I could eat all of that content up. And if the Dolphins were to have Hard Knocks this year, who wouldn't be fascinated in seeing how the Dolphins are going to try and move in the directions that they are, how Mike McDaniel is handling all this, how Chris Greer is handling all this, and all of this while they're both kind of on the hot seat. I would find all of it fascinating. And now, if I was a team, it would be training camp Hard Knocks is the easiest Hard Knocks to go through because you just got like the one episode where they set everything up, and then it's basically following rookies the entire time, but nobody wants to do it. That's why they had to expand the list. They're like, it used to be exempt, I think, if you made the playoffs, and there'd be all these exceptions. Now I think pretty much the only exceptions are new head coaches, and it's new head coaches, and if you've done it in the last if you've done that particular episode series for 8 years. So like the Dolphins, I don't think could be in season for another 8 seasons. But now there's a caveat where like if you win the division, you're going to be featured on the in season. Like that, like they can call on you to do that. But I love the fact that Hard Knocks is here. I love that we get this look into teams. I don't like the cop-out of doing the division thing. I think that's a little weak sauce. I think it needs to be one team, figure it out. That's the team that you follow. This whole getting to do the division thing, that's nonsense. One team followed the ins and outs. That's what you got. And I think, quite frankly, for Stephen Ross, I think it would be a valuable thing for the Dolphins to be on Hard Knocks. One, I think it shows everybody all the stuff that he puts into it. You get to see that beautiful facility. Last time we got to see a grass farm. So maybe all that stuff's a little redundant if they do it again. But to me, if I was Stephen Ross, I would love cameras around nonstop for how they're doing the decisions, who's eligible for all these decisions. The last time the Dolphins did Hard Knocks for preseason was Joe Philbin, Jeff Ireland. And I think we all found it to be very, very insightful stuff. Jeff Ireland being a bit of a boob with handling the Vontae Davis thing, Clyde Gates, the disagreements with Joe Philbin, all that stuff, the talks with Braylon Edwards, all that stuff, very, very interesting. You got to see Joe Philbin. How can he command a team? Now, Joe Philbin, I think they kind of did him dirty because it was his first year. They don't do that anymore. But we got to see, can this guy command a team? Is this guy leadership material? All that type of stuff. All fascinating. And, of course, we got the insight a little bit into Bullygate and where that all divvied up to. But when I saw that the Dolphins were actually eligible to do Hard Knocks again, I was excited. I love when the team can do Hard Knocks because I love getting that insight, getting those layers. And I even know, and mind you, that stuff, it's very filtered. And then in ways they're giving you like what they want to give you. But I think as an owner, I think that's valuable stuff to have out there, not only to get public perception, public reaction, and maybe more of an insight of more eyes on like, that's how they handled that. You guys took this guy instead of that guy. You didn't think that was this. Because when you're in your own bubble of it, we've seen now for years, like obviously Chris Greer has an ability to show to Stephen Ross, oh, this is why we did this, X, Y, Z. This is why I made this decision. This is what the coach wanted. Well, now it's all out there for everybody. And so I find that stuff absolutely valuable. So I doubt the Dolphins will get picked because they just did in season. So I feel like if they don't want to do it, if the owner doesn't want it done, I feel like he's going to get a break because they just did the whole in season and they were the only team focused on that season, so it feels to me like they would get a bit of a break on that one. But if the Dolphins did get picked for Hard Knocks again, I wouldn't be mad at it.